Alright everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today we got a bunch of news in regards to the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. Konami has had an official preview event where press had 2 hours time in order to get their hands on it and try things out. And of course, because there's so many games in the Master Collection, it's still very much surface level. But we found out a great detail more about the Master Collection news that people have been asking for a long time. So we can finally sit down and confirm some stuff. Let's get into it. PCGamesN has a new article that specifically talks about the support of keyboard and mouse support for the PC Steam version. Many people have been asking for this, and it seems like Konami is actually listening. Let me scroll down to the important bit here that we all want to read, and that is here. PCGamesN reached out to Konami for an official statement on the issue, which expands on these comments with specifics we can now share with you. However, it is stressed that this is a work in progress and that we hopefully receive an update closer to launch. So, Metal Gear Solid, as well as the MSX and NES games, so Metal Gear NES, Snake's Revenge, and Metal Gear 2, will only receive keyboard support. But they will get it. And for the shooting games, I mean, that's fantastic. They are NES and computer games originally, so having keyboard support, fantastic. Metal Gear Solid will get keyboard support, just like the PC version from 2000 has, I hope. Because that will make basically this version insane comparable to Metal Gear Solid PC versus Master Collection. I'm so excited to hear that right now. Hopefully they have still the weapon hotkeys in there, where you can actually make some funky glitches. And of course also here we have Metal Gear Solid 2 with providing keyboard controls, but for some mouse support. Some mouse support, we'll see what that really means. Unsure yet. And here's the biggest news, probably what people really wanted to have. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the only game in the collection that will have keyboard and mouse support. So full on, I assume, mouse-based aiming, which is of course great with the subsistence camera, where you can actually go over the shoulder, which is really more comparable to like already what modern FPS games have. And so it's coming. Keyboard and mouse support for the entire collection coming. At least, you know, keyboard for all of them, and then some mouse support for 2 and 3, which I personally think is fine. Fantastic. And yet more news just came out, hot off the press, confirmed. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 is also going to release on PlayStation 4. Literally says in the text, let me quickly translate that for you here. Metal Gear Master Collection Volume 1 PlayStation 4 version, download version, will be additionally released. Many customers have asked for a release on PlayStation 4, and we have decided to release a new edition. Details such as release date and price will be announced at a later date. So it sounds like that will not release on October 24th, but the fact that it is still coming to PlayStation 4, additionally to PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, PC Steam, and of course Nintendo Switch, is great for those people that do not have a PlayStation 5 yet. Or maybe you're just happy staying on PlayStation 4 for the time being, considering how expensive it is. So yeah, congratulations PS4 owners. You also can now get the Master Collection. Also, when you load up the game, you are immediately greeted here with a different intro. So it's not just that you boot up the game like in an emulator, but also you have different things that you can also check out with the Master Collection version. For example, you have the game selection here, you got the Master Book, the Screenplay Book, and additional downloads as well. Because as they confirmed, downloads for different languages are also available. Say you want to play the Japanese version, for example, you can do that. For Metal Gear Solid 1, what I'm really excited about is that we have VR missions and special missions, but also we get the base game in the integral version of Metal Gear Solid 1. So especially for speedrunners who want to run the integral version, because we can skip a very lengthy cutscene there at the end just before we fight Liquid, that is a great help for us to know, yes, we definitely have access to the integral version. As you can see here, this is the preview. You go to game selection, you got the base game Metal Gear Solid, you got Metal Gear Solid VR missions, which is basically what the US had. We had then Metal Gear Solid Special Missions, which was what was released in the European region. And then, of course, we have Metal Gear Solid Integral, which is basically a Japanese exclusive, / the PC version, which was then also internationally released. But when it comes to the console version, which is what we're based to expect here, then this will be basically the speedrunners version that everyone wants to run on because of certain advantages, as I explained. Coming back one more time to VR missions versus special missions. In the text, we can actually see here some content differs from that in Metal Gear Solid special missions. So I actually hope, and for speedrunners that is a little bit of an aspect, that we have both a 60 FPS version and a 50 FPS version, which is based on NTSC versus PAL video codes. For example, there is a world record in VR missions, which is called Mystery 10, that you can only beat the world record or get the world record if you play the PAL version specifically, not the international VR missions. So hoping that, of course, for special missions, it will work even better. We see also here, for example, in the start menu, you got start the main story or start the VR disc, and it's save data. Save data being edited, that sounds actually hype. Of course, we don't have any memory cards anymore here. So hopefully we can make plenty of saves and maybe even sync them to the clouds, of course. You can see also specifically here for Metal Gear Solid Integral, as it's expected, it's basically the Japanese disc version for PlayStation. English audio only, Japanese and English subtitles, exactly like it was back in 1999. And of course, difficulty settings and the VR discs have been added. Pretty sure then that at least is basically the NTSC-J version of VR missions there as well. And yes, we also have confirmation for Metal Gear Solid 1. There is a point called the online manual, and there we get the codec frequency in order to call Meryl. So because we don't have necessarily a box version, for example, on PC, there's no physical version. But also on consoles, you know, not everyone buys actually box games. So many by now just get the digital version. They can now find Meryl's code here in the online manual. What's more, we also have here in Metal Gear Solid 1 certain options. So we have the language that we can select, screen, notifications, and credits. Especially screen is a very cool thing. We have here different wallpapers that we can use. We can play basically on the blank background, but we can also have up to 7 different versions. We can also select if the game needs to be centered, aligned left or aligned right, depending on what you prefer. For example, maybe if it's a speedrunner, you want to have the game just based on left, and then in the right gap, you fill in all the rest, like your webcam and your timer. And see, these were the different. What's also great is, of course, the bonus content, as we can see here, same as Metal Gear Solid. We also get a little game selection here, so we got the NES version for Metal Gear and Snake's Revenge. And also we got here, of course, based on the timeline, Metal Gear based on the MSX version and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. These most likely will be based on the PS2 versions that we got with Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. And what's really cool is also you can see right away in the game menu itself, you can pick the language that you want to play in. Not really sure if this will still be based in on the NTSC version or the PAL version, which for speedruns does make a difference, especially for these 2D titles. But nevertheless, at least you can right away select your language that you want to play. You don't need to download it separately, and you can read the text in the 2D games directly in your language. What we also know is that, yes, the Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3 versions are based on the 2011/2012 Bluepoint HD remakes. These have been made for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 and are targeting a resolution of 720p. That might not actually be changing depending on the preview. The preview that IGN played here was the Nintendo Switch version, which still targets 720p, 30 FPS unfortunately. And Konami said themselves that they played an early demo, which was based on what they have. There are still fixes that Konami wants to do. So they are indeed going in and changing a bunch of stuff in order to make the old HD versions even better for today's standards, which is great. But also, especially on Nintendo Switch, IGN notes that there have been slowdowns. For example, in Metal Gear Solid 3, the 30 FPS target has not been really kept for most of the time, which, once again, based on a very short, limited time that they had with that, and also based on that's an early build, hopefully for the final release, October 24th, that will be ironed out, and at least on Nintendo Switch, it will run closer to a stable 30 FPS. But testing remains to be seen from everyone else's side as well. I'm hoping, for example, that Digital Foundry will make a nice little insight into how the versions run, for example, on Nintendo Switch. For PlayStation 5 and Xbox, but also on PC, IGN did not have access, so we don't know if they actually, for example, upscale everything to high resolution, or if the games still run at an internal 720p that maybe gets blown up to 1080p, 4K even. On modern consoles, that might not look as good. And based also, of course, on the textures, you know, everything has been updated for the HD version compared to the PS2 versions, but they're still targeting 720p. So for new 2023 release, we'd hope that at least they have something that's a little bit more upscaled to 1080p, or maybe even 4K. We don't know much about that yet, unfortunately. But at least Konami is working on those versions of the games. They're touching them up a little bit. As we know already, they also fixed, for example, the codec delay in Metal Gear Solid 2, which is a great aspect. For example, just for speedrunners alone. Also, of course, you have, of course, here the digital comics for Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, both as a video version and, of course, as a digital reading version. And additionally, you also, of course, have the soundtrack. And once again, director of brand marketing at Konami, Ben Kinney, confirmed that yes, there are some of the content for the bonus content, and there's just a few minor adjustments. So going through the final list has been finalized, but there are definitely still tweaks and adjustments being made to the different builds of the games. I'm personally excited because it tells me that both Konami cares and it's not just slapping, for example, Metal Gear Solid 1 into Duck Station and hides it or something like that. There seems to be an honest attempt to make the game not just playable, but really give it a good overall experience with all the different aspects. Metal Gear Solid Integral included, VR missions and both special missions. That alone is hype for me personally. But also with 2 and 3, even more fixes being done. Sounds good so far. And that's basically everything that I took from the video. Of course, I can only recommend watching it yourself. In the article itself, there's also a few more things that are definitely worth looking at. So, we know that IGN used only 2 hours of the time. They didn't have more. So, once again, everything in this preview and the impressions that IGN has here is really just based on 2 short hours. Once the game releases, me and all the other speedrunners, from our aspect, of course, we're going to sit down and probably do a few 24-hour streams and just put in a heck of a lot of time in order to get a very close look on those games from our perspective as speedrunners. And of course, also, there will be plenty of people hopefully playing the game, checking out casually and noting even more, hopefully better changes based on what we've seen so far. Interesting thing about the article is that the writer don't really know much about Metal Gear, it seems, to some degree, because they're talking about, oh yeah, there are 4 digital graphic novels, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid Bande Dessinée, and Metal Gear Solid 2 Bande Dessinée. And I'm like, these are just 2 comics, but different experiences. One of them you read, or whatever one you watch. It's not 4 comics, it's 2, but 2 different versions. Anyway, what's interesting here, once again, this is the part about the performance. As for Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, I should note that while it is the superb Bluepoint version Konami had us playing on the Nintendo Switch, it ran okay, but it was clear to both me and the person sitting next to me that there was a significant slowdown during some scenes in MGS 2 and MGS 3 on the Switch. Let's say they're still working on that, but yeah. I would hope that Nintendo Switch can run these old games well, but what that tells me is that probably they didn't use the PS Vita version for the Nintendo Switch, but probably still based on the Xbox 360 version. The assumption against the PlayStation 3 version, which has some advantages, of course, the whole problem of the pressure sensitivity buttons, which are not present anymore on modern consoles. And so my most educated guess, it's a guess, would be that they basically went and looked at the Xbox 360 version of the game and then worked on that, putting that to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and then of course Nintendo Switch as well, including Steam PC. They say here, otherwise Metal Gear Solid is exactly the same as the Bluepoint version that was released on PS3 and Xbox 360 and has been updated using the Xbox Series X backwards compatibility feature, which enhances some games. What's interesting to notice here, it appeared that texture quality was reduced to get Metal Gear Solid 3 working on the Switch, with native resolution looking like it was still at 720p as it was in the Bluepoint versions. Frame rate targeted 30 FPS per second on the Switch with the slowdown I mentioned earlier. So we know that the Nintendo Switch version, most likely for speedrunning purposes, won't be the ideal one. But it's still a little bit disappointing that the experience won't be that good. Even if they're targeting 30 FPS instead of 60, right? They can't even hold that. That's a little bit disappointing. And IGN also actually poses the questions that I had. While it's great that Nintendo fans may be getting these games for the first time, left me with the questions about the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X versions. Will their textures be updated? Are they targeting a locked 60 FPS, like the 360 version hits on Xbox Series X? You know, the Xbox 360 version can still be played on Xbox Series thanks to backwards compatibility program. And even if we don't buy them anymore digitally, if you have a physical disc, of course, you can insert that 360 disc in your Xbox Series and it will run absolutely smooth. Will the 720p native resolution be updated? The native resolution was what the HD collection from Bluepoint was set at for Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3, but that's going to look a little soft on modern consoles, and I totally agree. If at least they didn't upgrade the textures, allowing the games to run at native 4K, for example, would be amazing. But remains to be seen if they actually allow that. And I probably agree with the last point as well. And if it turns out that some of the games didn't get as many enhancements as we hoped, save fans on the Xbox Series X, that already own the HD collection may be better off buying the impressive Metal Gear Solid updates separately for $20. And that's probably the best take if you have an Xbox and you do already have the old HD versions because you bought them before they've been taken down. The only cool thing really is that you can get Metal Gear Solid, and Metal Gear Solid includes Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear 2. Absolutely fantastic. If you're not interested in the NES games, I mean, you can emulate them for free. So, you're not missing out too much. Yeah, the songs are not there, but I'm pretty sure the 3 bonus songs will be uploaded somewhere from someone. Like, let's not kid ourselves. And so, for example, the Xbox players, if they really want to get Metal Gear Solid, that probably still seems like a good deal from the preview that we've seen so far. And it has Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 in it. That basically completes the first 5 games of the series. And for everyone else, well, still remains to be seen. Cool insights, especially what they did with the backgrounds for Metal Gear Solid 1. What they included integral. We finally have that confirmed black on white on paper. And of course, special missions and VR missions included as well, which makes for the biggest package of Metal Gear Solid that you could ask for a single purchase of $20. Yes, once again, emulation cheaper, but, you know, for those that do want to have it just on, for example, if people only own like one console and a tablet and don't have PCs at all, which they exist, for them, great deal to get into the series. Just buy that once. And I think that's definitely not the worst start to go off from. And so, yeah, that concludes basically my summary of that article and my personal impressions as a speedrunner when I see that. So once again, check out the original article, link down below. And I wish you all a great day and hopefully see you later for another stream of Metal Gear Solid 2 Extreme. Bye-bye.